Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. So up next is kind of a four-part series for the nightstand builds in the master bedroom. There's gonna be 3 videos that I'm gonna separate out, and this first one is really long and I apologize. But they're gonna go through my design process. They're gonna go through my lumber milling process in the second video. The third video, I'm actually gonna build the nightstands. And in the fourth video, I'm gonna go over a little bit more detail of what I do for finishing. So again, apologies for the length of this one, but I'm gonna move the camera over here because I start right here with pen and paper and get my thoughts together, and then I move to the computer for SketchUp. So let me move you over here and kind of show you what I go through. So apologies for the angles, and apologies if my hands get in here and block the way. This is a real tough video to shoot, and apologies for my handwriting up front as well. So I'm gonna start with some known numbers. I know, for instance, my max width is 28 inches wide. I know my max depth is 17 inches wide. And I know that I want it to be 26 inches tall. So that's my starting point. I also know it needs to match other furniture. And that means things like tapered feet, and it needs to be 4 inches off of the floor. Top profiles, for the nightstand top needs to kind of match the profile on the big dresser, and probably some wingy drawer fronts since I've already done that in the room, things like that. So I'm going to start off with the legs. Legs I know are going to be 8/4. And I'm going to try to use quarter sawn material. Just so I don't have to veneer a leg. So I'm going to try to draw one of those. Something like this. And that's a simple, 8/4 leg. And then I also know there's 2 of those. And that's a known. I know it gets tapered feet, so I'm going to go ahead and draw those in. Exactly where they are and the exact numbers, I'm not sure. But I know it gets those, and I know it gets a 6/4 top. To match the other furniture in the room, I know it gets a curved rail. So I know there'll be at least one here in the bottom. And I'll just simulate that curve on here. That's a way over exaggeration, but it gets my point across for my quick sketch. And I know that the top also gets a nice curve. And I know kind of ballpark that what that leaves me for room. And I know that my wife wants 2 drawers. So the way that measurement works out is it kind of leaves me 2 5-inch drawers. So I know that is a brutally rough sketch, but I know from here to here is 26 inches tall. And I know this measurement across the top is 28 inches wide. And then, of course, the depth I know is 17 inches. Everything else from here is really kind of detail. The side view, again, I know that I have 6-inch legs, or excuse me, 2-inch legs by 2-inch legs. And 4 inches up, I know I get a curved rail that is 2 inches, and the top gets a 2-inch curve rail. And I know this all in here is a panel, which is very much the way that I did the dresser as well as the supports for the desk. So none of that has changed. So I'm going to skip this aside and bring in kind of what my full notes actually look like in my better SketchUp drawing, where I'm not trying to draw from the side, so you get a little better idea. Okay, so as I'm kind of going through my sketches and my thinking and whatnot, you know, anything that comes to mind, I go ahead and I add to this notes page, because when I go to SketchUp, all these things come into play. You know, things, 2 drawers and a shelf. This is what my wife required. Tapered feet to match the rest of it. 4 inches off of the floor. Again, that matches the rest of it, but that was designed so our rumba fits underneath everything. Match the dresser top profile. This would be the other piece of furniture in the room that actually has that top profile. African mahogany assessed stock on hand, right? So I have a lot of African mahogany left over, so before I make a trip to the lumber yard, I will do that. Wangi drawer fronts with Blum undermount drawer glides, 15 inches. Check my stock, make sure that those are ready to go. My wife requested this bottom shelf be a slatted shelf, so I will do that. 8/4 on the legs. Full panel sides to match the other furniture with the curves and the rails. 1/2 inch African mahogany for the panels. Again, check my stock. I think I actually have enough. And then some notes in here, thin down the legs a little, right? 8/4 gets pretty thick on some fairly small nightstands. But you know, where do I live in here? I'll know when I build the actual project. Grain selection, I made a comment here about quarter sawn for the legs so that I'm not having to veneer and things like that. And then straight grain Wangi for the drawer fronts if I can, merely because that's what I did in the desk, so that would match better. Oh, and this big note up here on the top is cable management. So I'm going to add some plugs in the top of this, like I did with the desk. So, armed with all this information, let's go ahead and move into SketchUp, and I'll show you what's going on. So now that you've seen what I do on paper, I tend to come to SketchUp and get those thoughts down in something that's to scale, because it's easier to go ahead and grab real dimensions for Mark, who does my plans for me, and everything is to scale. Even though the final numbers come off of reality and what I build in the shop, so if things change, but this is the shop drawing that actually gets me kind of on track and going the right direction. And I created one over here in color as well, just so I could kind of get a look at it. But we're going to redraw this, and I'm going to come down here and grab me some clean space here, and we'll go ahead and we will draw it again. So I'm going to start with known dimensions, if you would. I know overall we're 28 inches wide and 17 inches deep and 26 inches tall. The top has an inch overhang on each side, except for the back. The back does not get an overhang. So that's 1 inch on each side and 1 inch on the front. So my width then becomes 26 and my depth becomes 16. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that box at 26 by 16. I'm going to use the push-pull tool, and I'm going to pull that up to 24.5 because I know I want my top to be 1.5 inches or 6/4, and that leaves me with 24.5. So from there, I can start drawing other known factors. For instance, I know that my legs are all 2 inches. So I can pull my 2-inch mark there. I can pull my 2-inch mark there. And I can go ahead and snap those lines. As long as I'm here, I might as well perform the same function on the sides. And I'll snap those lines as well. Other known quantities. I know that the bottom shelf sits 4 inches off of the floor. That's where that bottom rail will be. And I also know it is 2 inches thick. Additionally, based off the other furniture in the room, I also know that that is a 1/2 inch of curve. So from there I can go ahead and grab my arch tool and start creating that arch. I can do the same thing on the top, as I know that that is a 2-inch rail. I also know that that has a 1/2 inch arch in it. So I will create the same thing up there. The bottom rail at that top grid line needs the line snapped. And now I should be able to get rid of some of these grid lines so we can start creating other features in the front. So as long as we're doing these rails, we might as well go ahead and do the side ones at the same time. They're done exactly the same way. So again, 4 inches up from the bottom, and I know it's a 2-inch rail. And I know it gets a 1/2 inch arch. And we perform exactly the same functions as before. And we'll snap that line. And we know we're 2 inches down from the top with a 1/2 inch arch. And we'll snap that arch. And now I can get rid of these grid lines and get them out of my way. So next up, we'll go ahead and we'll work on the tapers for the feet. I know that they're going to start 4 inches up, and I believe 3/4 of an inch step back is a good place to start. That may change in the shop, but that's a good place to start. So I can go ahead and draw those lines from that corner to that corner and do the same thing on both sides. And that allows me to get rid of this line and this line. So I still want all of this to go away, and I know that whole depth is 16 inches deep, so I can simply go to the push-pull tool and push that back 16 inches, and now it's gone. We'll create more detail in this leg in just a few minutes. So the other known is my wife wanted 5-inch deep drawers. If this is a 2-inch rail, I know I have to come down 7 inches to create that rail, or that drawer, excuse me, and I can go ahead and draw that line as well. And from there, it's an additional 5-inch drawer. And I can draw that line. I will also add a web frame to the bottom of this drawer. which I know will be 3/4 of an inch. So I can go ahead and put that in, and I can draw that line. And again, I will get rid of some of these grid lines just to get them out of my way. And just like we did in the bottom, this is an open shelf. So I can go to the push-pull tool and I can just push that out 16 inches and it's gone. So with those all out of the way, we can start adding depth to this piece. I know that all of these rails are going to get set back 1/8 of an inch, as is the drawer fronts and this web frame. So we can do that now. I set it back 1/8. Set it back 1/8, back 1/8, back 1/8, and back 1/8. That gives me all of my depths for the front. On the sides, they're just a little bit different. This gets set back 1/8, as does this. This panel is going to go back the 1/8, and then it's going to go back an additional 3/16. So all we have left to get rid of is this. To get rid of this, I actually have to turn this up on underneath and draw my lines to get that leg. So I know that's 2 inches, and that's 2 inches, and I'll go ahead and draw my line. And then I need to do that on the inside. So again, I will 2 inches and 2 inches and draw my line. What that allows me to do is simply erase these panels, which will leave this open thing here, and I don't know why Sketchup does that, but it does, and that's okay. If I really wanted to redraw it, I could, but it's just a shop drawing. And now I can go ahead and get rid of my extra lines again. So all that leaves is the top. Slide this down here just a little. So we know we want a 1-inch overhang on each side. So I'll go ahead and set those. And none on the back, but we do want one on the front. And that front one did not take. Get rid of that. And we'll draw a fresh one here from the front. 1 inch. So now we have to just draw another box using the same square box tool, and we'll draw us another box. Now with these lines in here, if I got rid of these lines and then used the push-pull tool, if I got rid of the lines, it would delete a bunch of panels. So we're going to use the push-pull tool first, but we have to do it in 2. And I know the top is 6/4, so I'm going to bring it up 1.5 inches and do the same thing here. And now I can get rid of these lines if I so choose. Nothing is damaged by that. You get the idea. And that is pretty much how I come up with the drawing. Again, I will get rid of my extra lines. Now for shop drawings, I can go up to the tools and do dimensions, and we can start adding actual dimensions. And these are legitimate numbers that are to scale, which is very helpful. And more importantly, you can get any dimension you want. Maybe you want to know dimension of this drawer front, for instance, even though we said it was 5, it's 5. I really like this labeling feature, so I can come in here and know that this is slats and not a solid shelf. Things like that. Maybe these legs, I don't want to write the dimension on, so I can write 2 inch by 2 inch, all legs. And it becomes a nice reminder for me. Maybe the top I label as 6/4, and I know it's African mahogany. So that's in there. And all those kind of shop notes I can put on here and keep for my reference. I could put the arch numbers in here. All of that stuff I can put in there, all to get me to a version that looks kind of like this and keeps me on track in the shop. Like I said, when I send this information to Mark, he will ask me for lots of details, and this is where I pull a lot of those details, and a lot of the details come directly from the drawing. So there you go, guys. That's how I design my projects. And it doesn't matter whether I'm designing something for myself or designing something for a client. Since this video is already running crazy long, we're going to make it a little longer. I'm going to jump back onto the computer, and I'm going to show you how I do a takeoff for a client and come up with a final estimate for their cost. Now, keep in mind the numbers. The lumber prices are based off my local lumber prices. The shop rate can be any number you want. I'm going to use 50 just for the sake of a round number. And so all of the numbers are somewhat estimates. But I think when this is done, I'm going to clean up this Excel file, and I'm going to drop it into my plans for you to use. And of course, you can hit me up if you need to know how to change formulas and whatnot. But the formulas that are in there are based off of, kind of my local lumber numbers and an arbitrary number of $50 an hour for shop time. So let's move back into the computer, and I'll show you how I do a takeoff. Okay, so I'm not sure why this subject is so taboo in the woodworking world, but it seems to be. This is my report page, and we'll come back to this at the end, which will help to kind of explain a bunch of these numbers. But let's start over here on the lumber parts. These are all of the individual pieces it takes to actually build this nightstand, their dimensions, and the number of parts, and their total board footage. And then this is my local cost per board foot, and I automatically add 20% to this total board footage. And more importantly, how long does it take me to build these individual parts, and my shop rate, and that's how the labor cost is popped into there. So these numbers might seem high, but again, we just chose 50 as an arbitrary number. You have to decide, what your local market and what your shop rate should be. This is just a number we selected for this video. The hardware is pretty much the same thing. What the hardware needs are, how many parts there are, what the cost is, and the time to install. And that's how we come up with the hardware cost. Finishes is very similar, with the exception of you always end up with a lot of leftover material. So there's no markup on this. There's no markup on the lumber either, other than adding additional lumber for wastage. And again, how much time does it take to apply? And this includes, you know, the sanding between coats and all of that. I do not charge for dry time. And that's what it costs to finish. And then the sanding and assembly, you know, as I get through the sandpaper and the dominoes, and physically how long does it take me to assemble that piece? And this is what that comes down to. So then if we go all the way back to the report page, this is where all the numbers are calculated. So in here, the lumber costs 69.5 total board feet. At my local prices comes out to $443. The hardware costs was just a little under $100. Finish costs was $105. Consumables was $61, and labor cost was $1,087 for a total of $1,790.92. And then I add things in here like 50% is due up front, and that's so that I can go pay for all of this stuff. And if they walk out on the project, I'm only out my time. But they're due, you know, $900 essentially up front. Additionally, I add a line in here that my quotes are only honored for 30 days, and I get them to sign it, and I fill in these yellow blanks, you know, estimated start, estimated completion, and the date of the initial payment, and then I give them a copy of this. So I actually print 2 copies of this, one for them and one for me, before I start a project. So that's how my quotes work, and I'll see you guys back in the shop. Well, there you go, guys. I hope you got something out of that crazy long video, but that was everything through a design phase all the way through a takeoff. And like I said, there'd be no difference between me doing this for myself and doing it for a client, other than I might not do the takeoff for myself. But it always starts in the design phase. And then when you get to the takeoff, you can kind of step through, you know, how can you make things a little bit cheaper? Is there a way to cut costs, or, you know, whatever those conversations need to be, you can have those honest conversations at that point. As always, my email is in the show notes. The forum site is in the show notes, and I encourage you all to go join the forums. Just a fantastic group of folks there that are all eager to help and answer questions as well as ask questions. I'm in there a lot. But hit me up any way you can. Hit me in, you know, right here on YouTube with your questions. I'm all good with that. And I hope to have that quote sheet downloadable off of my website here very soon. So that's going to wrap it up for this one, guys. Again, apologies for the length, and until next time, take care.